Hello, my name is Bendistis, and this is a short video lecture on secondary authority. All right, secondary authority, what is it? It's got the worst definition in the world. Secondary authority is anything that is not primary authority. Why is that even helpful, right? So primary authority is anything that comes from the government, cases, statutes, and executive orders. Secondary authority is commentary on it, right? So it's just analysis of primary authority. It's very vast, it's very broad. There's something very particular about it. The key thing I want to note with secondary authority is you are going to watch this video, you're going to leave school, and you're going to forget that secondary authority ever existed. And I get that. That's fine. I just want to point out the fact that there is such a value when it comes to secondary authority in a lot of different situations. I don't want you to forget about it too much. The two reasons as to why you use secondary authority, right, when you're in the war of legal battlefield, is either to get acclimated with an area of law you have no familiarity with. Okay, that'll happen all the time. It's an important thing to note because it's something that can really get you acclimated with something and give you the vocabulary. The other reason it might be helpful is because it commonly will summarize a collection of common law to make it easier for you. Okay, so while secondary authority can never be binding, that's the rule, right? It's still such a valuable asset for you. Okay, that you'd be surprised at how many times, and I hand to God this is true, that I have used secondary authority to win cases, right? To win cases, because commonly the primary authority isn't going to be helpful. But if you're able to go to the American jurisprudence, an ALR, a restatement, and present an argument that's clear and concise and can be informative, you would be surprised how often you're going to win. Okay, so it is something that please do not forget. The way we're going to go through it here is a very short hypothetical, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different citation forms. The problem with the Blue Book is that the citation forms are terrible. The Blue Book does not do a very good job of giving you secondary citation forms specifically. Therefore, please get this book. Understanding and Mastering the Blue Book is vastly superior. Again, I have taught legal citations for a very long time. I still use that book when I'm citing something because it's just so helpful. Okay, so please, I'll give you the pages that are in the Blue Book. Our rules with Blue Book citation are never assume you can guess with something, right? You don't need to guess with anything. It's all right here. But also making sure that you're comparing your samples to what's in the Blue Book. Now, you don't have a lot of examples here, but it can still be helpful. Our hypothetical is Delaware University has retained our office in response to a lawsuit from a student who was rejected from admission last fall. The student claims the university's affirmative action program, which gives extra points to students who would aid in overall campus diversity, violates the Constitution. The university claims the purpose of the program is to promote diversity on campus and to remedy previous discrimination in American history. All right, that's our problem. Let's say you are not an affirmative action junkie and you are dumped with this file on your desk. How do you figure out how to put everything together? Well, the first place you could start is the encyclopedia. All right, the encyclopedia is just like a legal encyclopedia. It's an alphabetical arrangement of topical information, and it's the American jurisprudence. Okay, the one thing I want to note when you're citing these, okay, because you're learning about them a little bit, they can be other ways, is use your index judiciously, use your table of context judiciously. One of the big thing with the citation forms here is this doesn't look normal. It doesn't look like anything else you've ever done. However, as long as yours looks like this, where it is volume, book abbreviation, broad title, section and year, you're fine, right? But you have to make sure yours looks like this. The biggest nuance with this is schools, that you're citing the broad title and not the individual section number, because the section name would be something different. Citing them both would be duplicative. There'd be no point to it, right? And if you turn to page 23, which please do, you'll note the fact that it's just a sample. There's nothing really there. So using this plus the Blue Book plus any other resources you have can be really helpful. The next citation form is treatises. Treatises are just books, right? They're just anyone can write a book, but writing a book is actually pretty hard. So they have a little bit of authority there, and they get into a really good amount of detail in one particular topic. I am in the state of Delaware. There's a treatise called Woolies, where I was a part of a lawsuit where Woolies was the determinative factor of what won. This treatise from, the 1800s was decided who won and who lost. So it's an important thing to sort of note from before. For here, the form is in your Blue Book. You want to note on these pages. The big thing is noting where commas are and where they're not. It's mostly a very common form the way the other citations are, which it's article, author, and then name, and then everything else, right? Periodicals. If I'm telling you that an encyclopedia is an encyclopedia and a book is a book, periodicals are basically magazines, right? So they're bar journals and then law reviews, which are kind of like fancy magazines. This is the only citation form that is a little bit more in depth than others, where you have to sort of note a few different pages. If you want to look at the form of these, it's going to be on page 149 or 159. That'll show you the structure. The number one thing, though, you want to note is you'll notice here 13 Widener L Rev. And you'll have the number, the book abbreviation, the number. It's the same as primary citation forms. That law review, where it will be the abbreviation, the 20th version, you should just give you the names of everything. It was very, very simple and easy, but the 20th makes you parcel it out. So there's a few things I want to note when you turn there. So if we can all turn to page 510 real quick. You're noticing the periodicals, it's titled Table 13, will have common terms that get abbreviated. Make sure you abbreviate them. Law is L period. Rev is review, right? The only other thing that's a nuance there is there's some big schools that are there, like Harvard, let's say. But if you go backwards to, let's go, where are we? Geographical terms on Table 10. Certain states will also be like Pennsylvania, Michigan. They'll be abbreviated too. The big thing, again, I'm like ripping my eyebrows out because I have no more hair on my head, is don't try to guess. There's no reason to guess. You just have to open your page. So when you're doing the secondary authority forms, just use your blue book and use it judiciously because it can be really helpful. American law reports. The American law reports and the restatement are very similar. They are summaries of common law. So what common law is judges developing the law from the statutes. A common example of how this would really work is, you know, there's a case where a guy sells another guy a cow that they think is barren, right? But they're both wrong, and the cow turns out to be, give birth. One guy sues the other guy saying, I would like to rescind the contract because we both had a mistake. Statutes can't be that particular. They have to be a little bit vague that go over from everything. So what the American law reports and the restatement do is they summarize all the law in every jurisdiction for you. Now, I am a Philadelphia sports fan, and my favorite Philly was Ryan Howard. Now, Ryan Howard in his last few days was either a home run hitter or a strikeout artist, and that is the American law reports. Either it gets all your research for you, or you get absolutely nothing. So this isn't the kind of thing you want to follow down the rabbit hole, because commonly when it comes to American law reports, it's either great or it's either bad. So you'll note from the title. The citation form here is very similar to the periodicals. Author, abbreviation, and then volume, book abbreviation, first page. The key thing is that it has to have annotation there. Annotation connotates the ALR, and making sure that that's there. The ALR fifth will be the series. So ALR is sort of like a very, again, fancy magazine that covers all these summarizes of articles. So when you have the series, just noting that second is 2D, third is 3D, but fourth and fifth and sixth and all of them are just TH, and that's all the same thing from there. The restatement. The restatement is a practical guide to common law. It's very similar to the other sections. The ALR, it just deals, it's a little bit more fancy, and it also has older law. So the example I gave you before about mutual mistake in the cows, you know, when was the last time you sold a cow? You know what I mean? So noting the fact that a lot of these old cases deals with things that are antiquated. And for some reason, old law is written in a way that makes zero sense. So the restatement summarizes it and gives it to you in a little bit of a better form. This is the most persuasive form of secondary authority. Do not discount it. It's very helpful. The only thing you have to do is, if you've got Lexis, put it in quotation marks, the section of your restatement, and put it into your entire jurisdiction. If it's cited, you'll know it's good. If it's not, you'll know it's not. It's a very quick way to note whether it's effective. The restatement is only found in 19 and 20. The key thing here is spelling out what's in parentheses, which is the series, and then getting the broad title, not the individual section from there. The 20th version also has American Law Inst. In it, that this is the 19th version, but just noting that there are some differences from there. The only key things I also want to note is your short form citations, which include id. Id is exactly the same, but there's a new version called supra. Now what supra says for the intervening form, which means that we're not citing the same thing, it just simply states that I'm citing something from previous. It's not the same citation I just cited, right? It's just something different. It will be the author title, the last name of the author, comma, supra, underlined, comma, and then at the page number. That supra, comma, right? 2 commas, underlined, lowercase. That's the thing. For some reason, they love uppercasing it, no commas. make sure it looks exactly like here. The only nuances here is that the American jurisprudence, there's some different rules here. I like to do it where it's volume, book abbreviation, supra, if I'm citing many sections, but commonly you could also just have Amjur 2D supra. And then there's no restatement with the there's no supra with the restatement. It's so fancy that we don't include it from there. So, noting a few things, make sure you have the extra section. Make sure you're only using supra for secondary authority. Chisel that into like your head to make sure that you're not using supra for primary, because that actually lessens the precedential value of the statements you're making. So it's really important to note. Otherwise, please make sure the pages are there and just double check everything. Cool? All right. If you like this video, please check out my other videos on YouTube. Also, please check out my podcast. It is The Citizen's Guide to the Supreme Court. It's on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Thank you guys very much, and I hope you learned something today.